Master Your Mindset Radio, episode 90.
Welcome to Master Your Mindset Radio, the show where we empower you to conquer limiting beliefs and transform your world with your gifting and purpose. Now for your host, Elizabeth Nader.
Hi friends, let me give you some advice, maybe some of the best advice you'll ever get, which is don't believe everything you tell yourself. That is the focus of today's podcast. Trust me, you cannot trust your own mind. Do not believe everything you tell yourself. It's very important that you take this to heart because we often tell ourselves lies, or not even aggressively lie to ourselves as much as we take things for granted and we believe in things that we have automatically believed in for years, sometimes our entire lives, and they're based on assumptions and falsehood. So today we're going to talk about why you cannot believe everything you tell yourself. This is going to help you, I think, see things differently. Now, one of the reasons you cannot trust your own mind is because we can't pay attention to everything going on at every minute. We have what psychologists call an automatic mind. The automatic mind is all the stuff we put on automatic pilot. It's all the stuff that gets processed without us thinking about it. It's not just things like remembering to breathe and your heart beating and all those things. I'm talking about the things that we process in our brain that we just do automatically. We do by memory, we do by rote, we do by repetition. Well, often that includes the way we see things. Often that includes the way we view things that happen to us or happen to others, the way we see the world. There's some things that we just don't question anymore. We just take them for granted, and that is how we see things. But today, I'm going to challenge you to say, is what you believe always true? Is what your brain, what your mind is telling you, is it always true? Trust me, you cannot trust everything that your mind tells you. And that really is, again, because of the automatic mind. The problem with the automatic mind is we make these false associations between things, and that's what we do in our mind. We're constantly making associations. Well, if you make those associations in a manner that is false or built on misinformation or built on a lie, and you continue to deepen that association and not challenge that association, now you have a limiting belief. Now you have a structure in your mind that is built on false information. And it's just something that gets reinforced over time. And before we know it, it's become so automatic, we don't even question it anymore. We make conclusions that are actually inaccurate. They're not true, but we don't test them. We don't challenge them. We just accept them, whether they're good or they're bad. And unfortunately, a lot of them are negative. A lot of them are not good. So every day we're making these quick assessments. Every day you're drawing conclusions. Every day your automatic mind is creating associations between things. You have to be able to do that quickly, because if you were to intervene in every single thought process, you would never get anything done. It's impossible with all these little tiny micro decisions that are happening it's impossible to challenge all of them. I do always recommend to people, though, that they focus on one area at a time and learn how to slow down the thought process and decision process related to an automatic response, emotional response, or something that we have, so that you can begin to see how to change and challenge the way we react to things. But unfortunately, if something feels true to us, we assume it's true, whether it's good or bad. And many people embrace what they think is true, and they're negative things. They're not positive things, and they just embrace them, even when it can be challenged, even when all evidence to the contrary. It's very hard for us to change those things that we've accepted as gospel truth, that we've accepted in concrete in our subconscious, that this is the association we have made, this is the truth we believe, and even all evidence to the contrary will often not even move us. We won't even spend the time, or challenge it because we've embraced that association. We've embraced that belief. So, I'm always trying to get you to challenge your beliefs, especially really spending time on the ones that are limiting, the negative ones. Why do you so quickly go there? Why are you so willing to embrace them? And unfortunately, this thing that happens in our mind, in the automatic mind, this stronghold that exists where we just associate things without even questioning them, it sets us up for failure in many ways in our lives, in many areas. It sets us up for challenges. It makes things more difficult for us. It brings negativity into our life, and it really stops us and keeps us from moving forward. So I want you to think about a few areas I'm going to bring up that are related to these automatic responses, that are related to these associations that we have made over the years since childhood that are now sort of in concrete in our subconscious and our automatic mind. And these are the things I want you to challenge. These are the things I want you to recognize them when they come up. And often they're rooted in an emotion. So they're not hard to recognize if you slow down. If you slow down and say, wait, why am I having that thought? Why do I believe that way? Could it be true? Or maybe it's not true. And then we replace that. So let's talk about some of those areas or traps that we fall into. One of the first ones, and very, very common, are the judgments that we place on others and on ourselves, the blame game that we play. We make snap judgments about people and situations very quickly, and they are definitely not always accurate. And generally, we don't challenge them and we don't test them, but we very quickly make a judgment and then we apply blame, and we find ourselves in a blaming mindset. And that's what happens when you make a snap judgment. Then you begin to blame others or blame yourself. Especially blaming others is a trap because that takes our eyes off ourselves. We don't have to focus on our own challenges, our own mistakes. It's just easier to blame others. So we make a snap judgment based on a false association often, and then we find ourselves in a blame game. And I think too that blame makes us feel like we are in some level of control. When you are in blame, it feels like you can control things around you, that you can assign meaning to things. And we always want to assign meaning. We always want to say, well, this is why something is happening, or it's their fault. Therefore, this is the way I see it, because we have to be in control of the way we see our world. So our brain will just get us into a judgment, and then we have a tendency to assign blame. And then once we've done that, we feel like we're in control again. So this need to be in control is actually much more powerful than our need to see everything accurately. Shouldn't be that way, but it's true. We spend more time and effort regaining control when we feel out of control, when we feel like things don't make sense, finding a way to assign blame, make snap judgments, make quick associations, do all of that so we can once again feel in control. But often that becomes more important than chasing the truth, seeing the truth, examining the evidence, and deciding if you're going to see things accurately. So be careful about the blame and judgment game. Are you finding yourself focused on fault finding? That's one thing that is important as an indicator that you do this a lot, that you are constantly finding fault. Rather than do that, rather than feel that judgment and frustration and anger associated with that, step more into compassion, long-suffering, mercy, a willingness to see things through other people's eyes. That has a tendency to balance the blame game. Another area that we have a tendency to fall into when we are basically going on automatic, when we are embracing assumptions and associations that we don't challenge, is we start to compare ourselves to others. Now, this is absolutely at its height now with social media. I often say that we have a tendency, especially women, but really everyone, on social media to compare our daily life to someone else's highlight reel. How many people actually post honestly on social media? I mean, some do, but how many times do you see their daily messy lives via social media versus the highlight reel that they want to show you. But what do? Is we compare ourselves to the highlight reel. We don't want to be different. This is how we are hardwired. We are hardwired as people to not want to be different, to not want to stand out too much. Now, some of us learn to overcome that and then we enjoy standing out, but really we're hardwired to not want to be different. So we compare ourselves because if we're different, we feel we might be isolated or excluded. So we fall into this trap of comparing ourselves to others. And it's really based and driven in fear and also driven in, again, associations that may not be based on fact. So that comparison is tending to be in the negative. It's not often that we will compare ourselves and say, look, I'm so much better. I mean, sure, we do that, but usually our perception of the other person is inaccurate. Our perception of ourselves is inaccurate. And then often most people walk away from that comparison feeling less than. So catch yourself when you're doing that. Catch yourself when you're comparing and say, wait a minute, challenge it. Is it based in truth? Are your assumptions about someone else based in truth? And are your assumptions or your givens that the way you see yourself, is that even true? Is that even true? Are you seeing yourself correctly? And rather than focus on other people, as always, focus back on yourself. Eyes on yourself, eyes on what you want to achieve in life, eyes on your goals, your dreams. And again, break those associations that aren't even based in fact. You don't even often know the people well that you're comparing yourself to, and nor do you know the truth about their life. So eyes back on yourself when that happens. And really, related to all of this, when we, again, get into this automatic mindset, our mind will lie to us and we get stuck in a viewpoint that's not based in truth. We think our reality is the only reality. So we can have two people at the same event or sitting through a same conversation or whatever and have completely different perspectives. This happens also a lot with siblings. They grow up in the same house and their view of their childhood totally different than the other person's view. Doesn't mean one is wrong, doesn't mean one is right, it's just different. But often we try to oversimplify things and say there is only one way to look at it. And that just isn't fair to anyone. There is not just one way to look at something, but we develop this viewpoint that's very hard and fast. And we say, that is the way I see the world, and everyone else should understand that. Well, that's going to cause you issues because you've got to know and remember that people see the world differently. So you have to recognize in yourself when you expect other people to see things your way, that you need to have the patience to know that, first of all, they're not expected to see things your way automatically. And it's possible, is it not, that the things you're making assumptions about aren't even based in truth. So are you willing to see things through someone else's eyes? Now, I'm not talking about, hard and fast morals or beliefs that are just really crucial about how you do life. I'm talking about all the subtleties of the way we see the world and what your mind tells you. You expect other people to see it the same way, which is totally unfair. So when you notice that in yourself, that you think others aren't getting it, slow down, check it out. Maybe you're off a little bit. Maybe you need to open your mind and accept the fact that other people see things differently than you do in areas where you've made automatic associations that may or may not even be based on fact. So it's a good opportunity to engage in other viewpoints. It's a good opportunity to allow some of those things to be challenged so you can see if in fact your brain is making associations based in the truth. And listen, we all grow from that anyway. We always grow from trying to understand other people and their position. It makes us less argumentative, less defensive, less self-righteous. Another thing that we fall into when we believe everything we tell ourselves is this need to complicate things. We just like to overcomplicate everything. Our minds never stop. right? Just overactive. So we're either stuck in the past and we are going over and over and over again, things that have long since passed, and we are overcomplicating our reaction to them. We're still tied to them. We're still affected by our past, or we are stressing and having major anxiety about the future. Either one of those is just overcomplicating life because you're missing the simplicity of the here and now. But it's hard when your mind is always spinning, the wheels are spinning, and you're just thinking about so many things rather than focusing on what's in front of you. So we have to help our minds by ending this never ending frustrating process of living in the past and obsessing over the future. It is absolutely destroying our ability to be effective in the moment. And all of those things that happened in the past, you may not even be remembering them correctly. You may not even be looking at them correctly. And yet your mind, again, is making associations based on falsehoods, and it's affecting the way you see yourself, and it's affecting the way you see your future. And many people have such great anxiety over the future, such great anxiety over what may happen. And a lot of those are associations built on and based in falsehoods. So how many times do these horrible things happen that you obsess about? All the things that you worry about, how many times do they come to pass? But in our mind, we've told ourselves this is real danger. And we obsess and we obsess and we obsess and we overcomplicate everything to the point of paralyzing ourselves in our daily lives. You need to simplify the way you look at life. You need to disconnect with the negativity of the past. You need to stop obsessing about the what ifs in the future. And you need to focus on the simplicity of what today brings you. And that will help you avoid confusion, exhaustion, that overwhelming feeling. Again, don't believe everything your mind tells you. Your mind will have you on a hamster wheel 24/7 if you give into it. We have to push back. And a way that you do that is by embracing reality, right? Embracing the reality of what is really going on rather than imagining, as I described, what may happen in the future, and also just obsessing over what happened in the past to the point where it's not even based in reality anymore. It's almost like these fantasies that we have about how we could have changed the past, or just avoiding some things that may happen to us in the future. And this is just all consuming. You know, the if onlys and the what ifs, they can just take over your day. And again, tell your mind to quiet itself. Stop believing everything it tells you. Accept where you are today. Accept the reality of where you are today, rather than living in these fantasy worlds that really cause you to be afraid and also resentful of things in your life. And one of the last things I want to mention too is expectations. That's another thing that this automatic mind can create for us, are just unrealistic expectations. And again, it's something where don't believe everything your mind tells you. It's just often that we are so hard on ourselves by setting unrealistic expectations. And it's kind of related to everything I've told you already: comparison to others, fear about the future, frustration about the past, pressure we put on ourselves, things that we think we have to do, we must have, you know, the endless judgments and blame. This all sets us up for these high expectations, which we can't meet. And we put on others as well. So in order to release yourself from that, it's important, again, you have to have positive outlooks and you have to have goals and dreams, but you have to base them in a reality that makes sense. These expectations we put on ourselves that are not based in our reality, or based in someone else's reality, or based coming out of anger, fear, or resentment, all they do is consume us and destroy us. So be careful that you don't put such heavy expectations on yourself, because when we do that, we actually become paralyzed again to self-doubt, to frustration, procrastination, because somewhere in us we know that those expectations are false. But they're based again in associations we have made, assumptions we have made, things that we have believed that our mind told us that aren't even true. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to have a little bit of an amicable split from your automatic mind. You need to break up a little bit with it in the areas that are hurting you. Of course, the automatic mind is a blessing when it takes care of tasks for us that we don't have to focus on one thought to the next. But where it hurts us, we need to step away. We need to challenge what's going on. We need to observe ourselves. We need to watch our negative emotions and feelings. We need to track that back to limiting beliefs. As I've taught you about before in The Mind of Man, and we do it in the book, is to uncover those limiting beliefs that are creating these negative fear-based emotions and feelings. So have an amicable split with your automatic mind and only accept the areas that are positive and that help you. Be willing to challenge everything else. Consciously watch your reaction to things. Consciously watch how things affect you and where you're obsessing and where you're standing still and where you're struggling. Are you believing the truth? Is your mind lying to you? Could you challenge that thought with something else? Could you replace a limiting belief? Is it possible that your beliefs are built on lies? And if you're willing to do that work to challenge it, that's where everything begins to change. But it's the small things that you catch. It's watching yourself. It's becoming a student of your own reactions. And it's being willing to wonder if your mind, once in a while, may be lying to you. And once you get there, it's amazing how much you can change in your life. So, don't believe everything you tell yourself. Have a great week, guys. Talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to Master Your Mindset Radio. Before you go, if you want to be part of a free online community of like-minded individuals for support, resources, and inspiration as you conquer your limiting beliefs and pursue your purpose, go to elizabethnader.com/community. That's elizabethnader.com/community, or search for Master Your Mindset Academy private group on Facebook. Looking forward to seeing you online.